Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Betrayed by Everyone and Became Bounty Hunter movie. Before we start, please go support Senpai Dragon1236 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. A story of betrayal and power. Sad, empty, lonely and hard, this is how Issei, better known as Shey, the most feared hunter of supernatural beings in history, describes life. A man who does all kinds of missions to earn money, a subject who in the past lost everything, family, friends, love, everything, and who even today that past haunts and torments him. Chapter 1: The Hunter. A tall man is seen dressed in a dark blue hooded cloak, brown boots, dark blue pants with a black leather belt and knife sheaths, one on each leg, and a long-sleeved shirt of the same color as the pants and the cape and beast. Also armor on top of the clothes that were chest and shoulder armor and gauntlets that covered the forearms, which were golden like the rest of the armor, which carried a bow and a quiver on its back which was full of arrows and a sword which it carried at its waist. Who looked at the night sky while wearing his hood and a dark blue scarf covering his mouth and nose, leaving only his brown eyes exposed. This while contemplating the sky was deep in thought, and then lowered his head and continued walking to what seemed to be a city with a medieval design, but the lights in the sky implied that it was a modern city in which a huge castle was seen which was in the center of the city. Fence is a very beautiful view of Asgard, said the subject to continue. Walking towards the city meanwhile Gremry Castle, a woman with blue eyes and a voluptuous figure with a characteristic crimson hair was seen. This was Rias, who was crying lying down for all the mistakes that had made her lose the brown hair. Issei. Forgive me if I had realized the intentions of that imbecile, she said with a broken heart, hoping to see him again, see that smile that made her fall in love, feel his aroma, see him even in her dreams. But suddenly someone knocks on the door. Rias, get out, it's time, said a woman. No, Akeno, said Rias, I don't want to go out if Issei is not, he said. He's crying, I know, Rias, but we must go to Asgard to the party that will be given in the name of Issei, said Akeno through tears, the only way to remember him and for everyone to know the deeds he did and thus never forget him. And that Rias remember how Issei sacrificed his life to defend the factions. You're right, Akeno, said Rias, wiping away her tears. In a few minutes I'll be out, he said. Okay, it's okay, we'll wait for you in the living room, said Akeno, which was wearing a black cocktail dress which left her back uncovered and revealing a great cleavage, going towards the living room of the Gremry mansion with a sad expression. Issei, I miss you so much, said Akeno, which wiped away her tears. Arriving at the living room of the mansion where Asia, Kaneko, Zenobia, Gasper, Kiba and Surzex are, which asked for Rias. Rias is getting ready, said Akeno. Okay, said the Mao. After a few minutes Rias arrived wearing a red cocktail dress the same as Akeno. Let's go, said Rias. Sad, okay, said the Mao, until a magic circle appeared and disappeared. Meanwhile the subject arrived at a bar on the outskirts of the city where adventurers, mercenaries and bounty hunters gathered. He entered the place going to the bar where a bartender was. Upon arriving he attracted the attention of several subjects, to which he did not give much importance to what the subjects continued drinking. The subject sat at the bar and ordered a bottle of wine, serving a little in a glass. Chapter 2: The Party. 1 of 2. The strange subject is seen drinking wine while he is deep in thought, but when he sees a note on a blackboard he stands up and begins to read. Security guards are requested. Upon reading further, the subject realizes that the pay is good. He paid the bartender and then decides to go to Asgard Castle. Upon arriving, several guards stop him, but when he says he comes for the guard job, they escort him to a small room where there is a subject dressed as a butler. Very well. What is his name? The subject remains silent for a few seconds and answers. My name is Issei. Change of scene. Asgard Castle. In a circle appears Surzex with the Gremry entourage, which upon arriving greeted Odin and Rosweiss, who had a sad expression. Hello, said Odin to the Mao along with his companions. Odin, come follow me, said this, so that Surzex along with Rias and his entourage followed him to a large hall where there were many people, angels, fallen angels and civilians of Asgard. When they arrived they saw Irina with Michael, which upon seeing them greeted them sadly, but she was not the only one, since all of them felt that way, because for them not being able to be with Issei made them feel sad for losing the man of their dreams. Michael seeing Surzex he greeted him, to which Surzex Also greeted him along with Michael was Gabriel, the most beautiful seraph in heaven, but she had a sad countenance, which in the same way as her brother greeted Serzex and his other companions. Minutes later in the hall several magic circles appeared, from which Shisaka and her daughter Kuna came out, and from another circle Kuroka appeared alone with Valet Biko, Arthur and Leify, and from another circle Azazel appeared along with Penemiu and Baraquiel. These greeted everyone. Change of scene, employee lounge, Asgard Castle. A butler is seen with a face of astonishment. Who spoke? You are the Security, said the butler. No. The subject only used the name in honor of his achievements. Answered the subject. In a manner that would be fine, said the butler, calming down a bit, because thinking that the Security was in front of him surprised him, but hearing that he only used his name in his honor calmed him down. Well, first let me tell you what the job consists of. Butler. The job is to make sure that no one attacks while the party is taking place, and if there is an attack, to defend the guests. Understood? The butler explained to the brown-haired man, who paid attention to his words. Well, the brown-haired man said, Okay, I accept. Very well, said the butler. Your pay will be given to you after the party. Well, said the brown-haired man, but you will have to change clothes, said the subject. Because it is a formal party, you should dress a little more elegantly, looking at your clothes. If you do not have clothes, you will be given some. The butler explained to the brown-haired man. Well, said this one. Issei, one question, where can I change? Said the brown-haired boy with a somewhat confused face. Well, you can change there, said the butler, pointing to a bathroom. Thank you, said the brown-haired man. After 15 minutes, the brown-haired man came out dressed in black pants with a black shirt, a long leather jacket with a hood the same color as the shirt and pants. He had a shotgun on his back and some strange gloves that, together with everything else, gave him a touch of mystery. Chapter 3. The Party 2 of 2. Issei, upon hearing his words, breathed calmly and spoke. Issei, I will not join you or clip it, said Issei seriously. Because Shiro asked seriously and observing the subject unknown to him and the rest of the guests. Issei, easy, I don't plan on joining a group of idiots, and you who are a coward for using an innocent child as a hostage and an imbecile for various reasons. Those words surprised everyone, since this guy wasn't afraid of him at all. He had to be very brave or very stupid to say that. On the other hand, Shiro was angry. This guy had insulted him, and before the brown-haired boy spoke, he spoke. Issei, you may have defeated the former Security, but you won't defeat me so easily. The only thing that made me uncomfortable about the former Security was his name. The Issei Dragon, of all names it had to be that one. Issei said while everyone looked at him with hateful glances, since this guy had insulted the hero of the factions, but especially the girls looked at him with pure hatred. He had insulted her. Issei Rias along with the others wanted to kill him, but they held back since it was not the time for that kind of things. Shiro, damn, you will pay for insulting me, but you know what, if the Security was weak it was very easy to kill him. That boy was an idiot, but enough of words, now die for disrespecting me. Shiro exclaimed to make a magic circle appear and launch an attack. That subject, everyone looked at him, but something happened and everyone had faces of astonishment, since the subject who had insulted the Security was in front, and divided was heard. After that all the guests looked at him until he spoke. I told you not, you will defeat me so easily, he said, so that some rays appeared around his body, and his eyes changed from brown to a sky blue color, and disappeared from everyone's sight, and reappeared in the same place but with Milikas in his arms, which woke up, and when seeing the subject he was scared, but he smiled at him and put him down. Issei, okay kid, go with your family, I'll take care of this, said Issei, to which the boy nodded and left with Serzex and Grafia, who hugged him. They were all surprised by the speed of the subject, since almost no one could see anything, and those who did see only saw a blur. Their astonishment stopped because of an angry Shiro, who spoke. Shiro, damn, apart from insulting me, you ruined my plans. Who do you think you are? Shiro said, already very angry since this guy had insulted him and ruined his plan. Shiro answers since the guy in front of him did not respond. Issei sighed and spoke, you already know me, you don't remember me, and he removed his hood revealing his face. The guests and the faction leaders as well as the girls who loved Issei were surprised, and Rias began to cry like the others since the boy they loved, the one they thought was dead, was in front of her. On the other hand, Shiro was more angry and surprised since the one he thought was dead was in front of him. Issei, wow, you remember me, he said with a mocking smile, to which Shiro shouted, damn, you're dead, I killed you, I saw you die, you shouldn't be here, damn imbecile, said Shiro. Issei, come on, it's not that big of a deal, and now I'll make you pay for everything you did to me, he said, pointing his shotgun and firing at incredible speed, hitting those who were with him, but they stood up and laughed. It seems your gun doesn't work, said one of the guys. Issei, it was not for that, he said this in a serious way, and before they spoke they were electrocuted and fell to the floor unconscious. Shiro was surprised, but before he said anything Issei spoke. Now you follow, he said this, but before he said anything Shiro made a magic circle and spoke, we'll see each other later, and then disappeared. Issei only had a serious look and then walked towards Odin, who looked at him. There they are, do whatever you want with them, to argue with him and go back to the corner of the room and stay there. Everyone looked at him with looks of astonishment and whispered things like, that is the former security, I really is this one, and other comments were heard, but he did nothing and stayed on the wall. After a few minutes Odin spoke, well, the party is cancelled, can leave. Several of the guests thanked for the party and left, leaving only the leaders of the factions, the Gremry group, the Vala team, the parents of Issei, and his sister. He alone walked towards the exit and left with the others who had come for the job and go to the room where the butler was waiting for them, since the 6 who had allied themselves with Shiro were arrested to be interrogated. Issei had left when they arrived at the room. The butler was waiting for them, which spoke. Butler, well, here is your pay with double the money that belonged to the other 6, but as you know they were arrested. This one gave them their pay. The butler accompanied them to the exit so that afterwards each one could take a different route. With the leaders they were talking about the recent attack, but the conversation changed to one regarding a certain chestnut tree. I can't believe that Issei is still alive, said Surzex. It's true, how is that possible, said Azazel. Well, the important thing is to talk to him as soon as possible, said Michael. Do you know where he is, asked Isaka. We don't. No, said Surzex. Wait a minute, Mr. Odin, how did those guys come, referring to the guards who had come to the party. Odin, well, it was reported throughout Asgard that staff was needed. Maybe that's how he came, so that he could later call the butler who had hired Issei. Butler, they left a few minutes after Celis paid, said the butler. Odin, well, we have to look for him, he is probably still here. Send for Issei Hyde right now, Odin said to the butler, who nodded and left. Well, we have to look for him too, Odin said. Well, exclaimed each of those present, to disappear in magic circles. Meanwhile, with Issei he walked through the city until he reached the bar where he had been hours ago, and then entered. He approached the bar and ordered a bottle of wine and paid and poured some into a glass and started drinking. He had a serene look and deep in thought until the door opened, revealing Odin with the leaders. This one, seeing them, did nothing and continued drinking. Odin approached the few who were in the bar, were surprised since the god of all Odin was in front of them. Odin approached Issei with the leaders and said, hello. Issei said, each leader with a smile except Yasaka, who looked at him with hearts in her eyes, and then Issei spoke, and well, what does the Asgardian god Odin want from me, said Issei while I continued drinking. Well, I wanted to tell you if we could talk to you in a more private place. Issei looked at him and sighed, since he knew that he would have to talk to them sooner or later. Well, said Issei, so that Odin looked at him and nodded. Well, let's say Odin. Issei drank what had been poured into the glass and took the bottle of wine and disappeared into a magic circle and appeared in a room where the team of Vale, the Gremry and Penemu girls were with Gabriel, as well as Irina, Ravel and her brother, and Kunu and her parents, with her sister. Chapter 4, Faces of the Past. 1 of 2. After he arrived at the place, everyone looked at him with serious looks. He approached, and before he said anything, Rias spoke. Issei, is you? Rias said with tears in her eyes. Yes, it's me. Rias. Gremry said Issei, something that made Rias feel bad, but she didn't say anything. Issei sat down like the rest of those present. Everyone was serious like that for 5 minutes until Issei spoke. Well, what do the leaders of the factions want from me? He said calmly, and drinking from the bottle of wine he had. Everyone looked at him until Surzex spoke. Surzex? Well, Issei, we want to tell you, if you want to join us again and go back to what we were before, what do you think? Surzex said calmly, and looking at Issei, Rias, like the rest of the women who loved him, wanted him to join them again, since that way he would be with them, and they would be happy. Issei looked at them, and before answering he took another drink of wine from the bottle and spoke. Issei, no, I don't want to join you, Issei said seriously and looked at them. But why didn't you say? Surzex, somewhat impressed like the rest of those present. easy because I like how I am now relaxing with wine, working to fight. It pays very well, although if I'm honest, it's not always about fighting but about helping towns, working as a guard, among other things. They make my job interesting and fun. Issei finished speaking and then walked towards the exit, and before disappearing in a magic circle, Surzex spoke. Surzex, what do you want? Money, wine, what do you like? All that and more, I can give you, said Surzex. Issei, none of that, it's just that I like my life the way it is. I finished speaking to disappear from the room. Everyone was surprised since he had left. Everyone was like that until Surzex spoke. Well, we have to find him and convince him to come back with us. With the women, Rias wanted to be with him to get married and be with him for the rest of her life. They all thought the same way as Rias except for Penemu, Yasaka, Kanu and Akeno. On the part of Penemu and Akeno, they wanted to be with him, get married and do all kinds of unholy things with the brown-haired boy, and on the part of Yasaka, she wanted to be with Issei and have him as a husband, and for the yokais to have him as a leader. Kanu, just like her mother, wanted Issei as a husband and be with him, not caring if she would have to share him with more women. She wanted to be with him, but they all had the same thought, having a family with Issei. Change of scene. A magic circle is seen appearing in a forest near a cabin that was near a lake and a small field of crops. When the magic circle finishes disappearing, Issei is seen approaching the cabin and walking down some small wooden stairs that led to the entrance, and upon entering he approached a small wooden table that was in the place. He left his things there along with the money and his weapons. He went to a room that was there. He entered and took off the clothes he had been wearing since he was at the Asgard party, and took clothes out of a closet that he had in his room. After changing his clothes, Issei is seen dressed in a brown shirt, black pants, and black shoes. He went to the kitchen to make something to eat. He boiled some water and prepared a vegetable soup on a fire that he had in the kitchen, free of things that could cause a fire. After preparing his dinner, because it was night time in the human world, after serving a little on a wooden plate, he prepared to eat. Change of scene. The Vala team is seen arriving at the dimensional gap. When Ophis arrived, she greeted them, but when she saw that Leify and Kuroka had a sad look but with a smile, and seeing Vala with a serious look but at the same time showing astonishment, she decided to speak. Ophis, what's wrong? I noticed that you're a little strange. Did something happen? Ophis said neutrally. Everyone looked at her for a few seconds until Kuroka spoke. Kuroka, he is alive, he is still alive. He is here, said Kuroka sadly but with a little joy. Ophis didn't understand anything Kuroka said until Vala spoke. Vali, Issei is still alive, we saw him at the Asgard party. Those simple words made the dragon shocked. Ophis Issei was the only thing she said to faint. Chapter 5, Faces of the Past 2 of 2. That was the only thing Ophis said before fainting. Ophis shouted Kuroka, Leify, Biko, Arthur, Vala and Lilith. Meanwhile elsewhere Odin and the leaders had sent for Issei to be able to talk to him. Rias on the other hand was staring at the other girls who loved the brown-haired boy. And well, who really loves my Issei, said Rias, to which they all raised their hands. But first let me tell you that we will have to share it, and that I will be the first, said Rias. And why do you have to be you, said Lyra, since she loved her brother since she had become a demon, and therefore nothing related her to her parents, only feelings since she no longer had their blood, and therefore there was no impediment to marry Issei. Yes, Rias, why do you have to be you, said Akeno, along with Penemi, Yasaka, Kanu, Seraphal, Gabriel, Rosweiss, Kaneko, Asia, Zenobia, Irina, Ravel. Because I will marry Issei first, said Rias, and they started an argument to see who would be Issei's first wife. Change of scene. Dimensional gap. Ophis opened her eyes slowly until she saw Kuroka saying her name. She recovered until she remembered Vala's words. She stood up suddenly and spoke. Issei, my Issei is still alive, she said with hope in her voice. Since that boy she loves was still alive, she wanted the Nikomata's words not to be a lie. Starting to cry, yes, she said, Kuroka and also Lilith, since the boy she and her sister Ophis loved was still alive. They were like that for a few seconds until Ophis spoke. And where is he, asked Ophis, drying her tears. We don't know, we only saw him in Asgard and he left, said Vala. Ophis, Let's go to Asgard, said Ophis a little calmer, but because Vala said he used a magic circle, right, said Ophis. Yes, he used a magic circle to leave, said Leify. Well, said Ophis, we will go to Asgard, and we will track him by the magic circle that he used to leave, said Ophis, since she and the others wanted to see Issei and tell him that they loved him and that they would never leave him alone again. Well, let's go to Asgard again, said Vala. Change of scene is seen Issei taking a bath in the lake that was a few meters from his house. After finishing bathing, he used a magic circle and appeared in his room. After drying himself, he dressed in the same clothes he had on a few minutes ago before he went to bathe, and left his room, heading towards the kitchen of his house, and went back to drink some soup which he had prepared minutes before. He went back to eat at the table where the money was, since he had already put his weapons away in his closet. Change of scene Asgard. We see Ophis arriving in a magic circle along with Lilith and Vala's team. They arrived and asked to speak with Odin. He was talking with the leaders of the factions until a butler spoke. Butler, Mr. Odin is looking for him. Vala's team says that there is a way to find young Issei faster. Those simple words made Odin give the order that Vala and his team would pass, since if they found him he would tell him to give them a chance. Upon arriving at the hall, Odin along with the leaders and the brunette's lovers along with their parents of this already razor, they saw Vala's team along with Ophis and Lilith. Everyone was surprised, and before they said anything, Ophis spoke. Ophis. Well, where did Issei use the transportation circle? Ophis did not beat around the bush, since she wanted to find Issei and see him again. She went that way, said Odin, pointing to the door, saying that Ophis approached and used magic to find Issei. After a few minutes she spoke. I found him, he is in the human world, we have to go fast, said Ophis to make a magic circle. Everyone approached and disappeared in the magic circle. Human world. Issei's house. Issei continued eating and thinking about what happened at the party, but he did not give it much importance, and continued eating, but he did not realize that several people arrived at his house. When Ophis arrived, she could see a man sitting at a table eating, and upon looking closely, he lived in a somewhat old cabin. It seemed that she and the others were in a small room, but large enough for them to be there. Ophis was going to speak until Issei spoke. Issei, although I already paid Robert the bottles of wine I owed him about the money, so if you don't leave you'll die, said Issei as he poured himself some wine and started drinking. Issei thought they were Robert's debt collectors, and that besides being drunk he was not helping at all. Robert was a guy who owned a bar where he almost always went to drink, but because he owed him a large amount of money he left there, but he came back about 2 days ago to pay, since he was not the type of person who never paid a debt. Ophis was surprised and approached Issei and grabbed him by the shoulder, and before she could speak Issei grabbed her hand tightly and pulled her away from him. Everyone stood on guard ready to fight. Issei's parents were surprised by their son's attitude. Ophis for her part had an expression of astonishment and sadness, and began to cry since Issei had hurt her, implying that he did not want to see her. Issei got up from his seat and turned to look at them. When he turned his face he could see the leaders of the factions, the Gremry girls, his parents, and Razor and Ravel and the other girls. Issei was surprised since he thought they were other people. The surprise made his drunkenness suddenly subside a little, but he was still almost the same, but a little calmer. But he wondered how they had found his house, but seeing Ophis crying and holding her hand and being hugged by Lilith, he had already found his answer, and then he spoke. Issei, Ophis, I breathes. I am sorry, forgive me, I thought you were someone else, said Issei, trying to get closer and apologize sincerely, but Lilith stopped him. Stay away from her, damn it, I won't allow you to touch her. Before touching her I'll kill you, and if I didn't kill you 5 years ago, then now I'll make sure you're dead. Everyone was surprised by those words, especially Ophis, since her sister had insulted the boy they loved, but after those words it was clear that Issei would not forgive them. Lilith, when she processed what she had said, regretted it and spoke. Lilith, Issei, forgive me, I didn't mean to insult you, I'm so sorry, forgive me. Lilith said, looking at Issei, who had changed his expression from one of surprise and worry to a neutral expression with an angry look. Ophis was going to speak until Issei spoke. Issei, and what do you want from me to bother you and come to my house without invitation? Issei said in a serious way, something that had surprised everyone, since Issei was not angry with Lilith for speaking to him that way, and that he had also ignored Lilith's apology, which was sad and regretful since she had insulted her. Issei, and the words she had said to the brown-haired boy made her feel that way even more. Chapter 6. Faces of the Past 2.5. Issei, and they want to bother so much. Issei said seriously as he looked at the faction leaders and went to sit in the chair he had and talk. Issei, take a seat. Surzex was going to speak, but before he said anything some magic circles appeared and from there some large sofas came out for them to sit on. After everyone sat down, Issei sat in front of them and spoke. Issei, well, tell me what you want and do it quickly, I want to sleep. Everyone looked at him in surprise and then Surzex spoke. Surzex, Issei, we wanted to tell you if you wouldn't want to join us again, think about it, you will have everything you want, and you would have a mansion, a harem, and you would be a high-class devil, as you say. Surzex said, waiting for Issei's response, who spoke. Issei, as I told you in Asgard, I will not join you since I like my life to be calm and relaxed. Issei said that while looking at them, while everyone present had an expression of astonishment, since he had rejected Surzex's proposal again, since he preferred a quiet life. Then his parents spoke. Mrs. Hayato, please come back with us so we can be together as a family, please, son, said Issei's mother, who looked at him with a sad look waiting for his answer. Issei, don't talk to me like that, you're not my mother, I don't have parents, so don't talk to me so familiarly, you understand. Issei said with an angry look, looking at the one he once called mother, who only became sad. Please, Issei, think about it, come back with us, we miss you please, said Risa with tears in her eyes just like the other women. Issei, no I won't, and if you'll excuse me I have to sleep. Issei said, ready to tell them to leave, but Surzex spoke. Surzex, Issei, I have a proposal for you. If you fight in a raiding game and win, we will give you whatever you want, and if you lose you will return with us. What do you say, you accept? Surzex said, looking at Issei, who stopped to think. Issei's thoughts. If I win they will stop bothering me and I will be able to ask for whatever, he said, thinking about the proposal, and after a few minutes he spoke. Issei, well, I accept. When will the game rating be, he said, looking at Surzex, who smiled. Surzex, it will be in 5 days. Gabriel will come to pick you up so you can go to the underworld. Surzex said, looking at Issei with a smile, since his plan had worked. Issei, no need, I'll go in 5 days, until then we'll see each other now, go away, I need to sleep. Issei said, looking at those present, who retreated into a magic circle. After everyone left, Issei went to his room to sleep. Meanwhile, in the underworld. In the great hall of the Gremry mansion, a magic circle appeared from where everyone appeared when Ophis appeared and spoke. Ophis, well, we'll have to train in 5 days so we can bring Issei back. Ophis said. Everyone looked at her, she was right, she would have to train to be able to win. Then Surzex spoke. Surzex, you're right, you all will have to train for the raiding game in order to win. Surzex said seriously. Everyone looked at him and nodded. They would bring Issei back. At that, Gabriel spoke. Gabriel, Surzex, because the raiding game is in 5 days and more time, so they could train more. Gabriel said, looking at Surzex, who upon hearing her question answered. Surzex, because in 5 days the young demon's raiding game will begin, and what better than a fight to start it off? Surzex said, to which Gabriel nodded. Everyone will train with Tannen from tomorrow morning. And tomorrow I will go see someone who will surely help us, said Surzex with a smile. And so the 5 days passed where everyone trained with Tannen, while Issei just thought about what he was going to ask for. Meanwhile, in the territory of the Mao Lucifer, several young demons from various clans gathered since a fight would begin. Everyone was waiting for that day, even several clan leaders would go, and if that were not enough, the fight would be broadcast throughout the underworld. While in the human world, Issei was in his room dressing for the raiding game. He had on a dark blue shirt, and he had on a long white hooded jacket, pants of the same color as his jacket. He was wearing the gloves that he had used at the Asgard party. At that, he makes a magic circle and disappears. Chapter 7, Faces of the Past 2 and 2 Halves Raiding Game. Issei, now ready, decides to go to the underworld, disappearing into a magic circle. Underworld gathering of young demons. In the great hall where the meeting of the young demons was taking place, several heirs of various clans such as the Baal, Gremry, Agars, Phoenix, and several more clans arrived along with their nobility. Upon arriving, Rias greeted Serorg, who looked a little happier than before, with the leaders of the factions of the underworld of the angels, the fallen angels, the Yokais, and the Asgardians. They were greeted by several clan leaders such as the patriarchs Sitri, Agars, Baal, among others. Surzek spoke to Azazel about a certain chestnut. Put Macklemore's song Can't Hold Us in the background to create a better atmosphere. Then the door of the huge room opened, revealing a man dressed in white clothes with his characteristic gloves. To almost everyone he was unknown, but to the faction leaders and the Gremry girls he was very well known. He walked until several guards surrounded him. Guard 1, what are you doing here? Who are you? Guard 2, answer who you are. Issei looked at them seriously until Surzek spoke. Surzek, put down your weapons, he is a guest who came to the meeting. He said seriously, and looking at the guards who stopped pointing their spears at Issei, who only looked at Surzek, and went to lie down against the wall of the huge room and crossed his arms. The party went on normally. Several young demons looked at the unknown subject with intrigue, since the hood he was wearing covered his eyes, only allowing his mouth and nose to be seen. Surzek and the leaders talked about different things, and with the women who loved Issei they looked at him with hearts in their eyes and talked about how Rias and Issei's parents looked now and talked about what their wedding would be like and other things. Until a demon approached Issei and spoke to him. Demon, what is your name? Issei didn't say anything and the demon spoke. Demon, come on, tell me your name. I'll just ask you that and I'll leave. The demon said, looking at Issei, who only looked at him. The demon only saw his mouth and nose since he couldn't see his eyes. Issei just sighed and spoke. Issei, you want to know my name, I'll tell you. Everyone paid attention to the subject because he made them curious. Issei, my name is Shey and everyone knows me as the hunter of supernatural beings. Everyone was completely astonished upon hearing his name, as before them was the subject who was considered the most feared hunter of supernatural beings in history. Surzek, along with the leaders and the Gremry girls and Issei's parents, were in shock since they did not know that information about the brown-haired boy. Everyone looked at him until the demon spoke. Demon, impossible, you are the hunter, she said with fear. Issei, yes I am, but don't worry, I'm in peace, so you better relax. He said, looking at the demon, who just nodded and left a little relieved, and then a demon spoke. Demon, show us your face, as we are curious to know who she is. He said, looking at Issei, who only looked at him with a serious look. Issei, if you want to know, well then look. He said, taking off his hood and revealing his face so that everyone could look at him more surprised. This one had her hair tied into a small ponytail with a red hair tie. The demon spoke, surprised. Demon, you are the former security. It is impossible. You died 5 years ago, you are not alive. The demon said in amazement until a blonde spoke. Segvera, Issei, as you please tell me, what are you? She said with hope and tears in her eyes, as that boy she secretly loved, that boy who stole her heart, was in front of her. Issei, if it's me, Agar Segvera. He said seriously and looking at the blonde, who looked at him sadly. Surzek looked at him with a serene look and spoke. Surzek, well, as you already know, this meeting was held to start the raiding game, and for that there will be a fight to start it off. It goes without saying that this fight will be broadcast throughout the underworld. He said, making the young demons get excited as there would be a fight. Surzek, well, Issei Hayadu will fight against Rias Gremry and his entourage, and against Serorg Bale, and against more opponents. He said this, making everyone say that this fight would end quickly, and Surzek spoke. Surzek, well, get ready, because in a few minutes the raiding game will begin. Issei looked at Surzek and approached and spoke to him. Issei, fine, I'll fight, but what do I win if I defeat them, and what happens if they win? He said, looking at Surzek, who spoke. Surzek, well, Issei, if you win you can ask us for anything, and if we win you will marry them. He said, looking at Issei, who looked at him with a serious look and spoke. Issei, I refuse, ask for something else, he said, looking at Surzek. Surzek was impressed and spoke. Surzek, well, if they win, they said, pointing at the girls, they will go live in your house next to your parents. He said, looking at Issei, I accept, was the only thing he said to leave. Surzek, well, the raiding game is off to a good start. He said to make a magic circle and that Rizzo and the others would disappear, and then he made another magic circle, and in this one Issei disappeared. Chapter 8, Raiding Game. In a pocket dimension, 2 magic circles appeared showing Rias and the others, and in the other Issei appeared, who had a serious look. But another magic circle appeared revealing Tiamat and Tannin and Great Red. He looked at them seriously and spoke, laughing. Rias, Issei, we will bring you back and we will be together as it should be. He said, looking at Issei, who spoke. Issei, not if I stop it. Rias was surprised and was going to speak, and then Grafia spoke. Grafia, let the raiding game begin, he said neutrally. Issei looked at them seriously and spoke. Issei, good start. He said as he jumped back and took off his clothes, leaving him only in a dark blue shirt, black pants, and black sneakers, and putting his arms at his sides, his muscles suddenly increasing. Everyone looked at him in astonishment, and the women blushed. Surzax along with the other leaders looked at him in surprise, and then Issei spoke. Issei, well, we have to get rid of the weakest ones. He said so that he was surrounded by blue rays. And disappear and appear behind the Gremry girls and hit them on the back of the neck and appear in the same place where he disappeared, but an announcement will be heard from Grafia. Grafia, the 2 bishops, the 2 knights, the 2 rooks and the Queen of Rias Gremry have been eliminated, said Grafia in a tone of astonishment, and she was not the only one, since in the room where those present watched the fight were in shock, since she had wiped out almost all of Rias nobility in just a few seconds on the battlefield. It was the same. Everyone was surprised, and then Issei spoke. Issei, well, let's start the fight without hindrance, he said, looking at all his opponents. To get into a fighting stance. We fought well, said Issei, looking at those present who were on guard. Issei, well, I like it that way. He said that he would appear in front of Rias and hit her so hard that she would gasp for air and vomit blood from the force of the blow, and that a current of air would form behind her, and she would then become unconscious. Lyra, for her part, was surprised as her brother had wiped out all her companions and her king in an instant, and then Grafia's voice rang out all over the place. Grafia, Gremry would be defeated, she said in the same tone as before, due to Issei's tremendous strength. Lyra, along with Vala, Ophis, Tiamat, Tannin, Great Red, Revel, Razor, Gabriel, Penemu, Yasaka, Kuroka, Irina and Leifi were on alert. Issei, well, since you are the majority, someone will fight with you, he said, so that a magic circle appeared and from it came out a huge white tiger with lightning on its body, who looked at them as his prey. Everyone present was even more surprised as in front of them was Byakko the white tiger, the divine monster that represents the West. Everyone was surprised, and then Kuroka spoke. Kuroka, it's Byakko, it's impossible, how is it possible that Byakko, a divine monster, is Issei's familiar? Kuroka said, surprised, and then Issei spoke. Issei, easy, he and I had a fight where if I won he would become my familiar. He said to everyone's amazement. Issei, but this is not the time to talk about those things, it's time to fight. He said, to be able to react to others and for them to look at him. Issei, well, hey Byakko, he said so that the huge tiger would see him and speak. Byakko, why did you call me Issei, why don't you greet me? Said the huge tiger, looking at Issei, who spoke. Issei, I'm sorry about how you've been. He said with a smile which the girls liked to see, seeing that smile again and remembering those moments. Byakko, well, thank you, and well, what do you want, Issei? Byakko said in a very calm tone, and then Issei spoke. Issei, well, I want you to take care of them, pointing to Yasaka, Kuroka, Leifi, Irina, Revel, Razor, Gabriel, Penemu, and then Byakko spoke. Byakko, well, I'll take care of this, it will be fun. Everyone looked at him in amazement, and seeing the huge white tiger, Issei spoke. Issei, well, just don't kill them, just leave them somewhat injured. Byakko, well, I just don't kill them and that's it, right? He said, looking at Issei, who nodded. Byakko, well, I hope this is interesting, he said, looking at his prey. Issei, after saying that, looked at Tiamat, Tannin, Great Red, Ophis, Vala and Lyra. Issei, well, it's time to fight. I hope you're ready. Chapter 9, The Fight. Issei, well, it's time to fight. I hope you're ready. He said, to look at his opponents and make them alert. Issei, well, let's start. He said so that he would be surrounded by the rays again, and his eyes would change from light brown to sky blue. They looked at him, and then Tiamat and Tannen threw themselves at him ready to fight. Issei launched himself at them, dodging the fire attacks of the dragons in front of him, and then falling to the ground on his feet and speaking. Issei, well, it seems that you are strong, so I will increase your defeat to finish quickly. He said this and seconds later took out a light gray glove with sky blue parts and small rays around the glove. The glove covered the entire forearm. Everyone present was surprised, but especially the group of dragons, who were in disbelief. Drake and Alvian inside their carriers were surprised since they recognized that gauntlet well. They were surprised and Issei spoke. Issei, well, with this we will finish quickly, he said to put his gauntlet in front and a recorded voice will be heard coming from the glove. Gauntlet, loading attack completed. After hearing those words, the blue gem on the glove glowed sky blue, and then something else was heard. Gauntlet, ready for use. Everyone was surprised but they were on guard, but it was too late. Issei was in front of them, and then hit each dragon more specifically in the stomach, causing them to spit blood and run out of air, but due to the force of the blow a current of air was formed behind them. Chapter 10, The Fight 2. Lyra was shocked to see her brother transformed into a dragon and terrified to know that her brother would die if he used that form. The huge dragon, seeing them, gave a loud roar, which made the brunette react and fly into the sky with Vala, who was also surprised. The huge dragon, seeing them in the sky, looks at them and roars at them while he was wrapped in blue rays. The brunette looked at her brother with caution, and then Drake spoke. Drake, partner, we have to get Issei out of that transformation, otherwise he will die. We have to make him detransform and that way he won't die. That made the chestnut relieved and asked her dragon companion. Lyra, Drake, what do I have to do to make Issei return to normal? The brunette said with determination and confidence in her words. Drake, first we have to make him tired and Vala reduce his power, and me and Alvian have to resist a spell that only the two of us can do. Only then will he be safe. Lyra then spoke to Vala to later tell him about her plan, which he accepted. Vala, well, we have to do it. If we don't do it quickly he will die, he said seriously. So Vala and Lyra threw themselves at Issei, who spread his wings and began to fly in the sky. Fire and lightning attacks in green, blue, and sky blue energy attacks with lightning were seen. The attacks continued until an announcement made the three stop their fight. Grafia, Gabriel, Penemu and Yasaka have been defeated. That surprised everyone. Everyone looked at where the fight was and saw the white tiger on the ground with blood. It looked wounded, in that Issei, seeing his best friend wounded, flew towards him, not caring that they were watching him. When he arrived he approached Byako. Issei began to cry. Issei cried in his dragon form. At that Byako spoke. Byako, friend, I've already finished defeating him, hee, it seems that this is the end for me. Chapter 11, End of the Fight 1-2. In that Big Red spoke. Big Red, we must attack him now while he is weak. He said to launch a large amount of energy at Issei, who used his divine division to then take his muscular form and hit the attack, generating a large explosion. At the end of the explosion, Issei is seen standing. He was inside a large crater. He did not have his muscular form. He was bony but still standing, but he was covered in blood. He was shaking and crying. Issei, no, I will not give up. You always have to get up and look ahead and say I am strong. He was talking and everyone was surprised since Issei was crying and very hurt, so he fell to his knees on the ground and spoke. Issei, because I'm weak. At that a being of light appeared and spoke. Being of light, no, you are not weak, you are very strong, come on, show that you are, try hard. The being said with a gentle and warm tone, and that the light began to take the form of that chestnut that gave everything for the beings he loved. That chestnut that helped everyone without asking for anything in return. That light was the former Issei Hayato. Chapter 12, End of the Fight 2-2. Issei, alright Great Red, it's time to fight. He said, taking his muscular form. Big Red, alright, it's time to fight. He said to look at Issei and get into a fighting stance. Great Red has human form but he can use all his power. Issei, it's time to fight. He said so that his eyes would change from brown to sky blue, and that blue rays would surround him. Chapter 13, End of the Fight 2.5. Issei was on the ground at that Big Red looks at him and speaks. Big Red, I'm so sorry, but I have to play dirty to get you back with them. Pointing to Ophis and Lilith. Big Red, so be it then. After finishing speaking, he grabs Issei's head and slams him into the floor. He was hitting Issei's head on the ground until Issei accidentally broke free and started hitting him. He hit him until a blow to the chin sent him into the air, and Issei charged a large amount of energy and threw it at him, generating a large explosion that when it dissipates you can see a more wounded and bloody Red. He rises to the sky followed by Ophis and Lilith who were next to each other. The two dragons spoke. Ophis, Issei, please give up. Lilith, Issei, please surrender. If you continue fighting you will die. Issei looked at them seriously and spoke. Issei, I will not give up, we must always give our all. The three dragons just looked at each other and talked. All three forgive us. They charged a large amount of energy and launched it at Issei, who gathered energy and also launched it. The energies collided, but the dragons was bigger and began to swallow Issei's energy, who tried hard not to give in, but it was useless, he was already too tired. The moment the energy reached Issei, he couldn't do anything but receive the attack and scream. Issei, no damn it. Issei, hhhhh. After that there was a big explosion. Play the video at minute 2:46 and stop it at minute 3:10. The spectators were shocked, and the leaders and girls who loved Issei were terrified by the fact that Issei died with that attack. When the smoke generated by the explosion dissipated, Issei was seen lying on the floor in a pool of his own blood and was very injured. He stood up, which surprised everyone. He was unconscious but still standing. Everyone was surprised, and Grafia spoke. Grafia, Issei Hayato has been eliminated. The winner is Rias Gremo. But before he finished the sentence someone spoke. Issei, this isn't over yet. Everyone was surprised since Issei was unconscious, but he was already awake, but they wondered how he woke up. With Issei minutes before Issei was in a dark place, he was surprised and spoke. Issei, it can't be, I really lost, I'm weak. Issei was frustrated since he was weak at that. A silhouette spoke. Subject, hey, you are not weak, you proved to be strong, you gave your all. Issei, but it wasn't enough, I lost. Subject, and that's what you've shown, you're a tough guy to beat and you're very strong, so go back out there and fight, show that humans have the ability to not give up and get up again and again, understood? Issei was surprised by those words and spoke. Issei, of course I won't give up, I won't lose so easily. Subject, well, that's how it is spoken, now go back outside and fight. Issei smiled and began to glow as he woke up. This spoke. Issei, this isn't over yet. Great Red along with Ophis and Lilith were surprised by the brown-haired boy's willpower. They were still in their amazement, but Issei spoke. Issei, Big Red, let's fight. Play Skillet's Finish Line song for more pleasure XD. After saying those words, Issei stood in front and looked at the sky, which began to surround itself with blue rays, and his hair stood on end. Big Red looked at him and descended to the ground. When he arrived, he looked at him and spoke. Big Red, I am amazed by your willpower and determination, and that is why neither of them will interfere in the fight. After saying that, Issei lunged towards Big Red, starting the fight. Issei and Big Red were fighting fist to fist. Until Issei, in a moment of carelessness, gave him a strong punch in the stomach, causing the dragon to spit blood and a current of air to form behind the dragon. After that the dragon flew into the sky. Issei wrapped himself in lightning and jumped so that in full jump he gave him another blow, causing Great Red to fall abruptly to the ground, forming a large crater. At the moment Issei descended and smiled. He was somewhat agitated but still smiled. Issei, when he saw Big Red, saw that he got up and threw himself at him, and so Issei and the dragon started the fight again. The punches were seen until both opponents received a blow from the other, and that sent them to opposite sides of each other. Issei stood up and looked at Big Red, and both opponents threw themselves at each other and began to punch each other again. Issei at that moment activated his power to the maximum. His rays became more noticeable, and his hair changed from brown to a sky blue color. Issei began to hit Big Red, who, due to his injuries, could not defend himself and hit well, missing some of his blows. Big Red thoughts, how is it possible that he moves with how hurt he is? He is more hurt than me and yet he doesn't show pain. This boy has a very strong willpower, it surprises me. Issei hit him with his bare fists. Big Red responded anyway, but it was useless. The dragon was very injured. Issei hit him very quickly, and without holding back. He continued until he hit him again with all his strength, sending him far away. Great Red threw energy spheres at him, which Issei easily evaded since the dragon was very injured, and that was why he didn't throw them very well. Issei, upon reaching his side, looked at him and kicked him, causing the dragon to fall face up, at which point Issei charged an energy sphere. Issei, this ends here, Red. You put up a good fight, but this is over. Issei was about to throw the sphere at him. He felt a massive wear and tear. His hair returned to its brown color, and his rays disappeared. Issei did not understand anything, but he felt a very strong pain. He began to scream in pain, and purple rays came out of his body, and he fell to the floor paralyzed by the pain. Issei, it hurts. Issei was very sore. Big Red looked at him in surprise since Issei was about to eliminate him. Chapter 14. End of the Fight 2 and 2/2 Final Chapter. Issei screamed in pain as he had suffered a drain of energy. Issei, it hurts. Great Red looked at him in surprise as Issei was about to finish him off. Issei was on the ground until Ophis spoke. Ophis, Red, fast, we have to heal you. Big Red, Issei, I'm surprised you're still conscious after this, but it's time to finish you off. Great Red was several meters away from Issei, who couldn't get up. Great Red sent a large amount of energy to Issei, who tried to stand up. At the last minute he stood up and quickly took his muscular form, hitting the energy attack, generating a large explosion. Issei was standing, he was shaking, but he was conscious and very injured. This one was crying. Issei, I will not lose so easily. If you want to beat me, you will have to kill me, since I will always get up no matter how hard you try. Humans have the ability to get up as many times as necessary for what we want, no matter how hard it is. Humans always stand up. You heard, dragon. I will not stop. Chapter 15. After the raiding game, the party and the raiding game stopped as Issei was badly hurt. A brown-haired boy is seen in a hospital bed connected to several machines in the place where the leaders of the factions were, more specifically in the Citri hospital. Surzex, Issei has been unconscious for 3 days. Michael, it's true, he won't be very hurt. Seraphal, the doctors said that Issei is fine, but that his arm is broken and that he doesn't have much vitality, and that his energy was low. In fact, they told me that it was surprising that Issei was still awake in the raiding game. And so everyone talked until someone spoke. Azazel, they already tried to communicate with the dragon that Issei has. Surzex, yes, but he never answers. It seems that he is also unconscious. Drake, no, he's awake, he just doesn't want to talk. Surzex, because. Drake, it can't be because he doesn't like us. Surzex, I see, it seems we can't do anything. Seraphal, what surprises me is that Issei is she. Michael, yes, I was also surprised that Issei was the one who started the supernatural purge 4 years ago. Azazel, that boy committed one of the largest massacres of supernatural beings in history. Gabriel, Issei destroyed a large part of Clipit's bases, not to mention that he also killed several of our soldiers, both angels, fallen angels and demons. Penemu, Issei gained great fame as a hunter of supernatural beings and also for attacking Clipit. And so they spent their time talking about trivial things and how Issei became so strong. Time skipped 2 days later. A chestnut tree slowly woke up while holding its head. Issei, but what happened? He said something sleepily, but then he felt a slight headache, but because he was weak he made it strong. Issei, damn. He said something painfully, but then he heard a voice in his mind. Jalvner, hello Issei, it seems you have woken up, I almost thought you were dead. Issei, hey friend, it's good to hear you, and tell me how long I was unconscious. Jalvner, 5 days. Issei, wow, I thought it was longer. Jalvner, Well, it seems that you're okay now. By the way, I repaired your arm. Issei, thanks, and tell me what happened and where I am. Jalvner, after you lost the game rating, they brought you here and took care of you. In fact, the women who love you come to take care of you. In fact, today is the Mao girl's turn. Issei, that's right. Jalvner, yes, that's right. Issei, and why do you say that they love me? Jalvner, that's not true. Jalvner, that girl sure deserved what you did to her. Issei, whatever, we have to get out of here. At that, Issei got up from his bed, but he had no clothes, only hospital clothes. Issei, I'll have to change. Issei made a magic circle appear, and from it he took out underwear along with clothes. 5 minutes later. After getting dressed, he was ready to leave, but then the door opened, revealing Seraphol in somewhat attractive nurse clothes. Issei blushed, but because he had the cloth covering his mouth, only letting his eyes be seen, it wasn't noticeable, and that Seraphol spoke. Seraphol, Issei, don't get up, you're still hurt, you have to rest. Seraphol said in a worried tone, as she didn't want Issei to get hurt. Issei, I'm fine, I'm going. Seraphol, no, you're not okay yet. Issei began to walk towards the exit, but then he felt a pain in his right side, causing him to hold that part. Seraphol, Issei, are you okay? I told you not to move. You're not fully recovered yet. Issei, I told you I'm fine. Seraphol, it's okay, but let us check you, and after you recover you can go. Issei just wanted to get out of there, but he knew that Seraphol was right. Issei, it's okay. Seraphol, well, I'll go call some doctors and then you can go eat at the hospital cafeteria, okay? Issei, okay. And so Seraphol left the place. Issei, how annoying. Jalvner, we should stay. Issei, why? Jalvner, while you recover, train here so you can recover and stretch a bit. Issei, that's a good idea. And so he sat on the sofa in the room to wait for Seraphol. 5 minutes later. Seraphol and a doctor entered the room. Seraphol was no longer wearing her nurse's clothes. Doctor, wow, I'm surprised you're already awake. Tell me your name. Issei, my name is Issei. Doctor, very well, young Issei, I will do some tests on you. Issei, okay. And so an hour passed where Issei did several tests. Issei, well, good thing I'm done. Seraphol, Issei, do you want to go eat? Seraphol said in a somewhat nervous tone and with a blush. Issei noticed but didn't give it much importance. Issei, okay, let's go. And so Issei and Seraphol went to the hospital cafeteria. When they arrived, they asked for food. Seraphol ordered a breakfast that consisted of pancakes with red berries and orange juice. And Issei ordered a piece of meat along with some bread and turkey meat, and a lobster, and a large jug of orange juice. Seraphol was surprised by what Issei ordered but didn't say anything. They ate calmly and Seraphol saw Issei eating. That's what I'm talking about. Seraphol, Issei, can I ask you a question? He asked and looked at Issei, who was eating in a somewhat strange way. Issei looked at her and spoke. Issei, what do you want to know? He said in a serious tone as he stuffed a whole loaf of bread into his mouth. Seraphol, because you are like that. Issei, like that. Seraphol, you weren't that cold. The Issei I know is gentle, warm, kind, and always smiling. Issei, the Issei you knew died. Sometimes you have to change to take the courage and do what you have to do. Seraphol, Issei. She said something sad about the boy whom she and the other girls love. Issei, well, if you have nothing else to say, let's eat. And so Issei and Seraphol ate in silence, something uncomfortable for Seraphol but not for Issei. After finishing eating, they went to the room where Issei was unconscious. Seraphol, okay, Issei, I'll leave you in the afternoon. I'll come see you. If you need anything, tell the doctors. If you want to eat again, go to the cafeteria and order whatever you want. Issei, okay. Seraphol, fine, I'm leaving. And so Seraphol left the place, leaving Issei alone. Issei, okay, go to sleep. And so our chestnut tree fell asleep. Chapter 16. Issei had fallen asleep in the hospital room. Citri woke up at 5 a.m. Issei, wow, I got up early to train. Issei walked out into the hospital courtyard and spoke. Issei, to stretch the muscles, he said, taking his muscular form. He started running and doing squats, sit-ups, push-ups and training his muscular form. He was training and it was already 7 a.m. When the nurses saw him, they called Serafal. Serafal, what happens? Why do they call? He said in a sleepy tone as he headed to the kitchen of his mansion to have breakfast. Doctor, Mr. Haidu is in the courtyard. Serafal, and that's urgent. Doctor, he is in his muscular form and his arm is broken. Serafal, what? Issei, what? Doctor, he is training but he is not fully recovered. Serafal, I'm going there. He said to disappear the circle of communication. She went to her room and got dressed. She called the other Mao and the other leaders. She headed to the hospital. Upon arriving, she saw Issei standing in the middle of the courtyard. She saw that he had his muscular form, something that alarmed her since he had little energy, as well as little vitality. At that point, the Gremry group, the leaders of the factions and the Valet team arrived. And before speaking they saw how Issei hit a rock very quickly. They approached Serafal and Serzex spoke. Serzex, Issei has already woken up but because he is training he should be unconscious for at least another week. That was something that surprised him a bit. Azazel, that boy is very strong. Michael, he has a broken arm, he doesn't have to move his arm. Chapter 17, Moving. Issei, wow, it's already daylight. This one sees the watch he had. Issei, wow, it's still 6:30, well, what can you do? He got up and put on his clothes. He left his room and went to the kitchen where his small campfire was. Issei, something to start the day. He prepared some coffee in the pit that was in the campfire. After making a fire and putting his coffee to heat, he left his cabin. Issei, well, let's go get some firewood. He looked at his cabin for a few seconds until he spoke. Chapter 17, Moving. Issei, wow, it's already daylight. This one sees the watch he had. Issei, wow, it's still 6:30, what can you do? He got up and put on his clothes. He left his room and went to the kitchen where his small campfire was. Issei, something to start the day. He prepared some coffee in the pit that was in the campfire. After making a fire and putting his coffee to heat, he left his cabin. Issei, well, let's go get some firewood. He looked at his cabin for a few seconds until he spoke. Chapter 18. The brown-haired boy was sitting outside the house he would share with the girls. Issei, hey Jalfner. At that a blue gem appeared in his right hand. Jalfner, what happened? What's happening now? Issei, sometimes I wonder if I made the right decision about the fight. Jalfner, you fought without strategy and without having a plan. It wouldn't have worked anyway since we literally had no time to prepare anything, and if we had we would have lost by a lot. Issei, still, I feel like I could have done better and not lost. Jalfner, I only know that you beat up those 2 dragons with heirs of greatness and the 3 dragon gods, although Great Red held back quite a bit. Issei, I know, he probably only used 30 or 40% of his power. Even if we had made efforts it wouldn't have worked. We're not powerful enough to confront him yet. Jalfner, I know, we should have made a plan with him and also for those dragons. Issei just got up and went to the small cabin where he had begun to clean and arrange his things next to a small bed to sleep there in case the case arose. He prepared his weapons and other artifacts such as his gloves and shotguns. Issei, we need to improve these things, specifically the gloves. Jalfner, why do you want to improve them? I feel like they're fine. Issei, I feel like they're in the way and I want to add a few more things to make it more effective. Jalfner, I understand, and the shotgun? Will you do it too? Issei, yes, I need to improve the charger and power to make it better. After that, Issei spent the whole day taking apart and reassembling the shotgun and gloves, improving them with some blueprints and new materials. Chapter 19. After what happened the night before, Issei got up early, had breakfast and went to a remote part of the forest which had several straw dolls and several bushes. Issei, here we go, let's try these beauties. He said this, taking out the bombs he had made the day before. Jalvner, I hope you don't burn the forest down. Issei just sighed tiredly, and looked at the bombs. Issei, that time was an understood accident. I didn't know that the first bomb I made was going to burn the forest a little. Jalvner, be thankful you had water spells, otherwise it's goodbye to the entire forest. He just sighed and began to test the bombs, which worked quite well and were effective. After that, he began to practice with his knives, taking them out and jumping on top of the dolls, killing them, or hiding in the bushes and pulling them to then finish them off inside them. Jalvner, hey, good moves, now that I think about it you should eat, it's getting hungry. He said this while the brown-haired boy's stomach was heard, he alone left there, keeping the hidden leaf in that small cabin and then entering the huge house and going to change, and then arriving and seeing the women eating and talking, who smiled when they saw him. They had only been able to talk to him twice, which was why they wanted to start a conversation again. Issei just walked past ignoring those smiles and going to the kitchen starting to prepare his breakfast. Issei had changed over time in which they knew nothing about him. Issei began to eat in the kitchen and then saw the girls enter, which upon seeing him began to talk. Rias, Issei, do you have plans for today? She said it a little nervously, but not so noticeable that a white-haired girl spoke later. Rosweiss, we want to talk to you about what happened. She was nervous but knew how to control her impulses with the man she loved. Issei just watched the women and then finished eating and spoke calmly but seriously. Issei, I have things to do, I'll go look for a job since there hasn't been anything in this time. He put down his plate and then stood up. Rias, I see. This one, like the others, was sad because they wanted to have a talk with him after everything that happened in the years that they knew about him. Rias, so can we go with you? Issei stopped watching the women. He was already somewhat annoyed with having to live with them, but if he wanted to draw a line he had to do it little by little so that it wouldn't be uncomfortable, at least for the time they were together. Issei, okay, but first a couple of things, don't get in the way, do what he says, don't go away, and lastly don't say anything. They all nodded and then went to the front of the house so that Issei could use a transportation circle and disappear, but not before going for his things and getting dressed. These appeared in a somewhat dark alley, and then began to walk following Issei on the streets of what seemed to be a city with a somewhat medieval touch. There were drunk men in several brothels. Issei did not pay attention to that but told Rias and the others to wear hooded robes since in that place it was generally somewhat dangerous. They walked until they reached a building in a completely different place. They had left that district full of drunk men and prostitutes, and then arrived at a decent part of the city, even with several cars passing by and people walking and talking. They entered the building and then saw a somewhat older man at the reception who smiled when he saw Issei. Jorge, hi Shey, I haven't seen you around here for weeks. What? Have you run out of money for food and wine? He said mockingly. Rias, like the others, thought that the man hated Issei or something similar, only to later see Issei smile. Issei, and I see that you are still here. Jorge, is your wife still upset about last time? Jorge, don't even mention it. That night at the bar went badly for me because of you. He touched his forehead, somewhat stressed, remembering what happened that night. Issei, it wasn't my fault that for losing a card bet you would fight with the customers there. Besides, I told you not to bet. Jorge, yeah, whatever, please don't remind me that I still owe money for the repairs to the bar and my wife is furious. He saw the people behind him and asked Chestnut. Jorge, hey Shey, who are those people? Don't tell me you're having lackeys now. He said and then looked at the people curiously. Issei, not at all, they're just accompanying me, that's all, although it is somewhat annoying. Jorge, great Shey Cormac having to use help. Are you so tired that you need help with missions? Issei, not at all, old man, I'm still as young and fast as ever, they just wanted to come and I brought them just that. Jorge, okay, anyway, you're here for the usual thing, right? Issei, that's what a mission is, I've been bored for weeks. Jorge, I knew you would say that, so that's why I set aside a special mission for you like the ones you always choose," he said, taking out some sheets of paper and a map and looking through them. Issei, "Oh really, how considerate, old man, and what is the mission about?" he said in a curious tone and looking through the sheets one by one. "Jorge, it's a murder and rescue mission. The location is in a remote donut in Alaska, more specifically in a small town near the Snowy Mountains." Issei continued to review the sheets, looking at the map of the village and its surroundings as well as weather information, mission details and other things. "Issei, and you have to kill so that they pay 7 gold coins or even 12 if you do everything to the letter," he said, looking at the report, since they usually only paid with silver, bronze and copper coins, with gold coins being for difficult missions that had to be 100% completed. "Jorge, see the last sheet and see the photographs," he said in a serious tone, as well as his gaze. Seeing the photos, Issei stopped smiling. "Issei, it's a joke, right?" "Jorge, do I look like I'm making jokes now?" The photo that Issei had made him curious but at the same time cautious. He looked at the photo carefully.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.